She grew up on one of the most watched reality shows in television history, and for years she smiled on cue, wore the matching outfits, and played her part in the story America fell in love with. But here is the part nobody prepared for. Hannah Gosselin is an adult now, and she remembers everything. Not the edited version. Not the one TLC packaged into feel-good episodes. The actual version. The one that happened after the cameras stopped rolling and the crew went home. What she has said about her mother, her childhood, and what really went on inside that house has left people who watched the show for years completely reconsidering what they thought they knew. Most people who watch Jon and Kate +8 remember it as comfort television. A big, chaotic family, 8 adorable kids, a mom who kept everything running with iron precision, and a dad who was perpetually one step behind. It was warm, relatable, and completely compelling. What almost nobody understood at the time was that the children living inside that house had no version of their lives that existed outside of being filmed. Hannah Gosselin was born on May 10, 2004, in Hershey, Pennsylvania, one of 6 sextuplets born to Jon and Kate Gosselin. She and her siblings Alexis, Aiden, Colin, Leah, and Joel joined older twin sisters Cara and Maddie, making the Gosselin household one of the most unusually structured family environments in America, long before a camera crew ever showed up. When TLC launched Jon and Kate +8 in 2007, Hannah was 3 years old. She had no context for what normal looked like, because from almost the beginning of her life, normal meant being watched. What the show presented to audiences was a carefully assembled version of family life. Kate's organizational precision was framed as admirable. Jon's easygoing nature was played for laughs. The kids were adorable. The chaos was manageable. And even the difficult moments resolved within the runtime of an episode. But the mechanics behind that content tell you something important about what daily life actually felt like for the children inside it. Cameras were installed throughout the Gosselin home, not just present during scheduled filming sessions, but embedded in the architecture of the house itself. Breakfast, bedtime, arguments, discipline, moments of joy, and moments of genuine distress were all captured as a matter of routine. The children grew up understanding, at some level, that their behavior was always potentially on record. There was no guaranteed private moment, no room where the performance could fully stop. Kate was known for running the household with a level of structure that went far beyond what most parents would recognize. Meals were scheduled precisely. Clothing was coordinated. Behavior was expected to meet a specific standard, and deviation from that standard was addressed swiftly and firmly. Viewers at home often interpreted this as efficiency, which in some respects it was. 8 children require logistics. But for Hannah, who was by nature more emotionally expressive and sensitive than some of her siblings, that level of control had a different texture from the inside. She later described that period of her childhood as one in which appearances consistently took precedence over feelings. If something difficult happened, the priority was managing how it looked, not necessarily addressing what caused it. By the time the show was drawing its largest audiences, the Gosselin family had become a genuine cultural phenomenon, appearing on magazine covers and generating tabloid interest usually reserved for scripted celebrity drama. From the outside, it looked like a family thriving under attention. From the inside, the pressure of maintaining that image had already started extracting a cost. Jon and Kate's marriage was deteriorating throughout this period, and by 2009 their divorce had become public, with the show itself rebranded to reflect Kate's solo custody arrangement. Hannah was 5 years old when her parents' marriage ended on national television, old enough to understand that something had broken, not old enough to fully understand why, and surrounded at all times by cameras that ensured the breaking would be documented and distributed to millions of strangers. There is a particular cruelty in the way reality television handles children. The format presents itself as unfiltered truth, but it is in practice a highly selective version of events, shaped by producers, editors, and commercial interests. What gets shown is what serves the story being sold. What gets cut is everything else. For Hannah, the gap between what aired and what actually happened inside the Gosselin home is where the most important parts of her childhood exist. Hannah has described the household environment during those years as one built around compliance, not just the ordinary compliance parents reasonably expect from children, but a deeper, more pervasive requirement to suppress individual feeling in favor of collective presentation. Every aspect of daily life was designed to maintain the brand the family had become. Children who deviated from that standard experienced consequences the cameras rarely lingered on. The most significant and disturbing detail to emerge from Hannah's account involves her brother Colin. Among the 8 Gosselin children, Colin occupied a specific and troubling position inside the household, treated differently from his siblings in ways that were visible to the other children even if they couldn't fully articulate what they were seeing at the time. Hannah has described how Colin would be separated from the rest of the family during ordinary daily activities. He ate at different times. He was excluded from outdoor play his siblings participated in freely. He was kept in a separate space within the house for extended periods, a space Hannah described as a containment room. This was not an occasional consequence for a specific incident. It was a recurring feature of his daily life. Colin, now an adult, has corroborated these accounts with his own recollections, which are considerably more specific and considerably harder to hear. He has described the room as fitted with a bolt lock on the outside, meaning his confinement was not voluntary and could not be ended by him. He has described being locked inside with the lights off, and has spoken about a security camera in the room that let Kate monitor him remotely. Kate's public response has centered on Colin's behavioral and psychiatric history, framing the arrangement as a medically advised intervention for a child with documented special needs. She has maintained that professionals guided her decisions and that her actions came from genuine concern. But the picture painted by Hannah and Colin does not describe a clinical intervention. It describes a child being punished, isolated, and hidden from the rest of the family in ways that left lasting damage. For Hannah, watching her brother disappear from the texture of daily family life was one of the defining experiences of her childhood. She was young enough that she lacked the framework to fully understand what she was witnessing, but old enough to feel the wrongness of it. What makes her account particularly significant is the absence of exaggeration in her telling. She describes what she saw and experienced in language that is measured and specific, which makes it considerably more credible and considerably harder to dismiss. By 2018, Hannah was 14 and had spent the better part of a decade under her mother's primary custody. What shifted that year was not a dramatic legal ruling, but something quieter. Hannah made a decision. She had been spending increasing time with Jon, the visits stretching longer, and her returns to Kate's house becoming something she resisted rather than accepted. Jon has said he noticed Hannah was visibly anxious and guarded during that period, in a manner that didn't match how a teenager should reasonably move through the world, and that over time, as she spent more time in his home, that guardedness began to ease. Eventually, Hannah told Jon directly that she did not want to go back. Jon pursued a custody modification, and in 2018 he was granted full custody of Hannah, a significant legal outcome reflecting a court's assessment that her well-being was better served by the change. Shortly after, Colin was released from the behavioral facility where Kate had enrolled him at age 12 and joined Jon and Hannah. For the first time, 2 of the 8 Gosselin children were living outside Kate's household. Hannah has described her life at Jon's home in strikingly simple terms: normal. There were no cameras. Meals weren't scheduled to the minute. She could have friendships, make mistakes, and navigate ordinary teenage life without those experiences being filtered through a television brand. She has said she finally felt able to be herself, in the basic sense of not having to represent something or someone else at all times. The transition came with losses. Her relationships with her siblings became strained, as the 8 children had effectively been sorted into 2 households, with loyalties creating friction. Hannah has mentioned her sister Leah as the sibling she stayed closest with, and has spoken about hoping the family could eventually find some version of reunion that didn't require cameras, contracts, or the management of public image, just the ordinary bonds of siblings who share something no one outside that childhood could fully understand. For most of her teenage years, Hannah said relatively little in public about her family, a considered position, not a passive one. That changed in 2023, when she appeared on Vice TV's documentary series Dark Side of the 2000s. Her contribution stood out not because she made sweeping accusations, but because she spoke with specific, grounded detail that is difficult to fabricate and difficult to dismiss, describing how daily existence in the Gosselin home was structured around appearances and brand maintenance rather than the children's emotional needs, and speaking clearly about Colin's separation and containment. She didn't present her mother as a villain in simple terms, acknowledging that Kate was managing genuinely difficult circumstances. But she also made clear that understanding those pressures as real doesn't require pretending the impact on the children was acceptable. Kate responded publicly, defending her parenting decisions and reiterating that Colin's treatment was medically guided. Her oldest daughter, Maddie, aligned publicly with Kate, stating Colin had engaged in violent behavior. Jon's longtime partner, Colleen Conrad, offered a contrasting picture of Colin as a genuinely kind person. Hannah did not escalate or respond with counterstatements. She had said what she needed to say and declined to sustain a public conflict. Restraint that suggests she spoke out because she felt it necessary, not because she wanted an ongoing fight. By 2024, Hannah told interviewers that she and Kate had begun speaking again, tentative conversations limited to ordinary topics. She acknowledged Kate was her mother and that the relationship, however complicated, was not one she had written off entirely. It's a more nuanced position than either a clean reconciliation or complete estrangement, the reality of someone who has experienced genuine harm within a relationship that also contains genuine love. If Hannah's testimony opened a window into the household, Colin's public statements throughout 2023 opened something larger. He described being singled out from a young age, subjected to punishments his siblings didn't face for equivalent behavior. He confirmed and expanded on the containment room Hannah had referenced, describing an exterior bolt lock, remote camera monitoring, and being confined alone, sometimes in darkness, for extended periods. He said the pattern began when he was 8 or 9 and escalated over years, and that he never received a clear explanation for why he was treated differently, a telling detail, since children genuinely receiving clinical intervention are typically given some explanation of it. Kate's characterization of Colin as a child with a distorted perception of reality was difficult for many observers to accept, partly because Hannah's independent account corroborated the essential details, and partly because the specificity of what Colin described doesn't read like the kind of detailed distorted memory typically produces. For Hannah, Colin's statements validated something she had carried since childhood, confirmation that what she had sensed as a child watching her brother disappear from family life was real, not misremembered. By 2024, Hannah was 20 and living a life that bore almost no resemblance to the televised one America watched her grow up in. She graduated high school in 2023, launched a skincare brand called Gosselin Girl Beauty, began a relationship with Lennon Johnson Jr., and has appeared publicly with Jon in ways that reflect a father-daughter relationship built on ease rather than performance, including a 2024 appearance on the Tamron Hall Show discussing a shared weight loss journey. Hannah remains in contact with some siblings, particularly Leah, while 4 of the sextuplets, Alexis, Joel, Leah, and Aiden, stayed with Kate in North Carolina. The Gosselin family today is 8 adults spread across different households, each navigating a shared past in their own way. Hannah's relationship with Kate remains one of cautious, tentative contact. She hasn't disowned her mother, nor performed a reconciliation. She's in an ongoing, unresolved process of figuring out how to hold a relationship with someone who caused her real harm and who is also her mother. She has never suggested her mother felt nothing for her children. The harm and the love appear to have coexisted in the same household, which may be the hardest kind of childhood to make sense of, because it doesn't allow for a clean conclusion. Hannah Gosselin is one of the first children of a major reality format to grow up, find her own voice, and describe what it was like to be filmed without being able to consent to or understand what that filming meant. She won't be the last. The children who appeared on reality television throughout the 2000s are adults now, and their accounts are beginning to accumulate into a larger reckoning with what the format asked of the youngest, least powerful people in front of its cameras.